So the other day, we did go out there and make this video. We went over the Detroit Red Wings and a young guy in their system that has been very good over the past few years, one of the most underrated prospects ever since he was taken in the second round in 2018, Jonatan Berggren. And if you had seen the video we made, you already know my thoughts about this guy. It's kind of weird that Steve Yzerman has gone out there and discussed this player in a trade capacity. But ever since that video was made, Berggren has been with the Wings. Dylan Larkin is out, as is David Perron, if you hadn't seen the news. So Berggren's been playing, and he's been pretty good. He's gone out there with a boatload of points, he's scoring some goals, and realistically, there isn't anything more you could have asked for this guy. So, when it comes to the updates that we have seen in regards to Berggren and teams that are apparently interested, the one that stands out to me right away, of course, happens to be my second favorite team. Here's a tweet made by Costa Ronzokos talking about what David Pagnotta said. He says the Montreal Canadiens have engaged in trade talks with the Red Wings about Jonatan Berggren. Now, just to keep things clear, Marco D'Amico, who writes for Montreal Hockey Now, went out there and replied saying, yep, but he says that they are one of the teams that have shown interest. Key distinction there. Not necessarily have the Montreal Canadiens talked about a trade and they're getting things done with the Red Wings about Berggren, but they are one of the many teams that have shown that they want to do so. Now, because this is a very simple idea, it's just saying, hey, the Canadiens are interested in this guy. What's more to it? This is where I come in and try to fill in the blanks as to what this actually means. Now, first things first. Montreal going out there and talking to Detroit about a guy like Berggren, not a surprise. We've seen the Canadiens exhibit similar trades over the past few years when it comes to guys like Kirby Dach, when it comes to guys like Alex Newhook, prospects that are still young and still have the capacity to grow in that, let's say, 2018, 2019 age range. Berggren fits exactly in that time frame. Not to mention the fact that Berggren has already played an NHL season. More or less, it was a full one. He had 67 games played last year with the regular Red Wings and had 28 points in the process. This is a guy who legitimately could be seen as an NHL player who just happened to be playing in the AHL for whatever reason this year. If there is some sort of an idea floating around that Berggren is an NHL caliber guy that just hasn't been given the chops, then Montreal could say, hey, your guy's not even playing with you anyway, why not send him off? If you guys are thinking about trading him, we could give him a spot, maybe we could give you a defenseman or something like that because we've got a lot of these things, and we could make things happen. Who really knows? Thirdly, if the Montreal Canadiens are going to be so adamant on moving away from guys like Sean Monahan or Christian Dvorak in the next little while, then maybe a player like Berggren could be seen as a nice replacement. Again, he played center in the SHL, but heading into the NHL system, I mean, he's playing wing in Detroit, so there could be some versatility there. Monahan is playing in the wing in Montreal right now, so if you wanted to trade Monahan away for something, then Berggren could be a nice replacement on that top six spot. So just in general, Berggren is already an attractive enough piece where I could understand why most NHL teams would be going after him, but for Montreal specifically, with this timeline that they've built up, you've got Suzuki 2017, Caulfield 2019, Newhook and Dach 2019, and then Berggren is 2018, not to mention the Canadiens' own 2018 guy, excuse me, they don't have him anymore, that was Jesperi Kotkaniemi. They took Jayden Struble, though, in 2018, and he's been pretty alright, so this is sort of the territory, right? These are the guys that the Canadiens seem to be targeting and that they would prefer to acquire in trade scenarios, especially if they're looking to free up some space on the roster. Now, when it comes to what the Wings could ask for in return, the replies and the tweets that were talked about all kind of say the same thing. Hey, the Canadiens have a lot of D-men, why not go after a defenseman? And the one that popped up right away, you've got Jordan Harris's name tossed out there, Canadiens fans are talking about Arber Xhekaj, and realistically, if you wanted to talk about defensive depth in Detroit, obviously there's room to move around with things, but if you did want to get younger, quote-unquote, find a guy who is in that same age range as a Moritz Seider to work alongside of him, then there is room to do that. As we had said, the Jordan Harrises, the World of Xhekajs, even the Caden Goulies, all these guys are pretty young. You're not touching Caden Gouli in a trade, but I digress. And the Wings, if you wanted to look at their defensive core, I mean, Gostisbehere, Sherratt, Petrie, these guys aren't the youngest guys in the world. So if you really wanted to focus on finding younger defensive depth to help out with Seider and grow alongside of Seider, then that actually would make a lot of sense. Of course, you still have Simon Edvinsson in the ranks. He hasn't been playing in the NHL for whatever reason that is, but there still is an opportunity here if you wanted to explore some sort of a trade. And the only reason we're talking about this is because there have been rumors that Berggren is on the market in the first place, which, as I said in the beginning, is kind of weird. Like, Steve Yzerman would have to be getting a haul in order to even consider the idea of a Berggren trade. And so when it comes to what this could go down to, I mean, the Montreal Canadiens would need to shell out a lot of assets, I feel, in order to make a Berggren trade worth it for Detroit. Not unless there very is just a direct addressing of needs and wants here from either side. I'd be curious as to seeing what that looks like on paper, because as we have said this entire time, Berggren is young enough where you could say there's a lot of potential out of this guy. Like, he's not going to be a Dylan Larkin, Nick Suzuki, 70, 80-point player, but if he maxes out at 50, 60 points per season, then that's a really good get for a guy taken in the second round. Especially since this is an opportunity to get him locked up. He expires at the end of this season, and he's on his ELC, so if you wanted to extend some money, say, okay, Berggren, we think you're going to be an alright player, here's, let's say, $2 million by 3 years per season, something like that, and then he pops off, for example. That makes things look really good as to how you're going to be able to get this player on the books. Just for reference, though, if you wanted to talk about the other trades that the Canadiens have done that looked like this, Kirby Dach cost a first-round pick, that in which was acquired from the Islanders in the Alexander Romanov trade. It all kind of happened at once. Alex Newhook was acquired from the Colorado Avalanche in yet another trade involving a first-round pick, not to mention the second and Gianni Fairbrother that were thrown in there too. So for prospects that are in this age range getting sent over to Montreal, the Habs are willing to pay their prices. And normally that revolves around first-round picks, but for Berggren, because he was a second-round guy, I don't know if he has that pedigree, but of course you could say, hey, I mean, he's worked his way up to the NHL, he's playing all right, he's scoring goals, he's making points, so maybe you could say, for a guy who is this young and this good, he could be worth a first as well. If that's the case, then hey, good on the Red Wings for moving up, because Berggren was a 33rd overall pick back in 2018, taking that second-round guy, developing him, and then trading him for a first. That would make things really great, but then of course you have to acknowledge that, hey, he was only taken 33rd overall. That's 2 picks out of the first round back in 2018. So if you're a Red Wings fan, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think the trade price for Jonatan Berggren should be? This is a good player, so where exactly do your priorities lie when it comes to trading for an asset? Do you want a young defenseman from Montreal? They've got a lot of them. Is it a Jordan Harris? Is it a Darber Xhekaj? If you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, what would you want Kent Hughes to not touch in a Berggren trade? And where do you see this kind of player fitting in long term? If you wanted to say that in 2027 or 2028, the top 6 of the Wings, or not the Wings, excuse me, the Canadiens, looks like Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky, and then on the second line you've got like Berggren, Newhook, and Dach, for example, then that's a really stable core that could grow alongside of each other and exhibit very good results long term. I mean, the playmaking style, the size of Dach, not to mention the speed of an Alex Newhook, it all complements each other very well, and if you're very adamant that Suzuki, Caulfield, Slafkovsky should stick together, then I mean, there's no telling where things could go as these players all grow together. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Montreal Canadiens getting involved in the Jonatan Berggren trade talks with Detroit. Wings fans, Habs fans, let me know your thoughts as to where this could go and what do you want to see get swapped around. What is untouchable? What is necessary? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.